Either I get the best, coolest thing ever, or I can't find anything that's not dull or run-of-the-mill. Worse than socks. I get sleepy as I'm wrapping because I know I'm not doing it right. Right, to me, means the best it's ever been done. Doing it so well that people will be talking next Christmas about what a wonderful wrapping job I did. I imagine wrapping my gifts with cloth that is hand-stamped, made from silk from caterpillars that were hand-raised, with Vivaldi playing in the background. In comparison with the inner perfectionist to whose standards I hold myself, Martha Stewart is merely adequate. In the real world, I adopt an attitude of despairing carelessness. Why try when I won't even be able to come close? Layered over the despair is a sense of irony. I get it, that the present will look and be ordinary, even though my feelings for the recipient are far from ordinary. If I had hand-raised the caterpillars to classical music, made the wrappings from their silk, and learned the ancient stamping and knotting techniques that would make my wrapping into a work of art, the present still wouldn't match the love with which I mean to present it. There would still be something wrong with the knot. I get the joke that perfection can never happen. I've heard of Chinese artists who deliberately put a tiny imperfection in an elaborately carved jade ball because perfection is an insult to the gods. I would never have to put one in deliberately. I don't think they do either. Maybe I'll make a bumper sticker just for myself. Imperfection happens. I feel a mix of despair and cheerfulness, both of which are responses to my awareness that the perfection in my imagination can never be attained. So I try to relax and have fun most of the time. Yeah, despair, irony, cheer, that's me. I also know that I don't care if a present is wrapped perfectly when I'm given one, so I bet no one is inspecting my wrapping job. They're busy feeling good, that they're loved and cherished, glad that they live in a cocoon of friends and family that holds them, not perfectly, but holds them nevertheless. The tyranny of perfectionism is so heavy when it's unexamined, so easy to shrug off once you look at it full on. Why should I despair? I'm doing well enough. In this world, all we have to do is learn to love and be loved. That takes the whole time. Nothing else is important. Maybe my wanting to have a shimmering silk ribbon made from my own caterpillar farm is just a way of distracting myself from love with something easier. My heart makes silk that those I love can wrap themselves in, fall softly into, rub absently across their cheeks. Right now it still has a few rough places, but I'm working on it, sometimes to Vivaldi. The voice of perfectionism becomes a tinny and distant demand. Why should I despair when I'm wrapped in a symphony of silk from the hearts of so many friends? What gifts of love I've been given. What gifts I have still to give. I smile a silky smile. At this time in the service, we bring our joys, our sorrows, and our memories into this sacred space. If you have a significant joy or a sorrow or a memory, please go to the window if you care to and light a candle. If you're not going to light a candle, please hold those who are lighting candles in your heart, wrapping them in holy light and sacred dark. Today we're talking about the devil. You don't normally talk about the devil in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I don't know if you know that. I'm also talking about Martha Stewart because the holidays are here and we're going to be decorating our houses and our tables and inviting family and going over to family. We're going to be traveling and buying presents, and at the same time as we do all that, we're trying to be fearless crusaders for social justice, and we're appalled by the pepper spraying of students, and we don't know what to do because we don't know what to do. And all of that happening at the same time is just a lot. And Martha would know what to do. I'm sure she's doing it just right. She's probably inventing some kind of antidote to pepper spray that looks beautiful and smells good. Martha Stewart is an idol of perfection for straight women and gay men. And some gay women, but I don't know many straight men who idealize her, although, anyway, she went to jail. But even the way she went to jail was perfect. She did. She didn't say, they're just convicting me because I'm incredibly rich and really mean. That's what we said, but she just said, enough delays, let's get this over with. She looked charming in her little orange jumpsuit. She went to prison. She did good works amongst the prisoners, took little walks every day, stayed fit, and then she went home. And her little ankle bracelet kept her in the house, but she made beautiful, perfect things in front of the TV camera with her little ankle bracelet on. And I just say, I hope I never have to go to jail, but if I do, I want to do it like that. And many years ago, before I had children, I was fascinated by gardening, and I had never gardened. That wasn't part of my family's culture. So I asked for her gardening book for Christmas, and I got it, and it's a gorgeous book, enormous, and it has photographs that just glow. Her peonies are luminous, and her little cherry tomatoes look like jewels, and even in the wintertime, her garden under snow is gorgeous. She's got little rock walls that stand out in the snow, and little knot-shaped herb garden and trellises, and month by month, her book taught me what to do, how to start seedlings, how to paint concrete urns so that they looked like verdigris copper, how to make poached pear dessert with the pears that I had grown in my own. Well, I didn't actually grow the pears. I didn't actually make the dessert, but I grew tomatoes and zinnias and beans, and I learned a lot. You know, the beans were leafing out, and I thought, what the heck? Why are they not beaning up? Where are the beans? And then, one day I was weeding down, I saw they're underneath the leaves. So I was a long way from pear trees, but you can feel very inadequate next to such perfection. And it made me feel a little bit better when I found out she sleeps 4 hours a night, and she has this army of helpers who oddly enough rarely make it into the photographs. And so I am an admirer of Martha's. I am just not an admirer of what she does to some of us. Not her fault, but we compare ourselves to her, and and feel clumsy and inadequate. And I do not know whether there is an ideal man right now like that you men would compare yourselves to and feel clumsy and inadequate. I know John Wayne used to be the guy, but that's another generation, and don't know who the guy is now. I look at the guys on the Home and Garden channel because they're, very competent, kind of like Martha. And Norm can do anything. He can look at a picture of a 15th century armoire and make it in his little backyard workshop. And I love the way he says, "Remember to always wear your eye protection." It's very motherly. And he just seems very normal. But he's kind of goofy looking, and so I think maybe he doesn't make people feel as inadequate as Martha, who is fit and gorgeous and knows how to make her home beautiful and cook beautiful things and entertain her beautiful friends. And she even, will make something and, spray it all gold or put pine cones all over it and then step back and say, "Oh, that's perfect." Can I tell you the number of times I've stepped back from something I've made and said, "Oh, that's perfect." And yet there's something in so many of us that wants to be perfect, and it affects us different ways. It affects us more if we're tired or hungry, if we've just been yelled at by our mother or been over to a friend's house who's perfect. And perfectionism, it raises its head in different ways in some of us. Some people are perfectionists when it comes to their homes, and some people are that way about their appearance, and other people are that way about their finances, and other people are that way about their cars. If their car is not clean, they feel like there's something wrong with them, or that people will look and see that there's something wrong with them. Perfectionism has this idea that there's something secretly wrong with you that you have to make up for, and what I need to tell you is that almost everybody has that feeling at some point, that there's some kind of core competency for being a human being that everybody else got the instruction booklet for and that you did not. And you have to use this knowledge only for good, because to know this is a powerful thing, that almost everyone around you feels like it's their fault somehow, and that they have catching up to do. Like they're the kid that came in a week after camp started and everybody else knows the songs already, and they have to sit around the campfire kind of grinning and moving their lips and faking that they know the words when they don't really, and they have a horror of being found out. And most of the people who have this worst really are firstborn people. And, of the 26 first astronauts, 23 of them were firstborns. But in the same article, of the 26 top inventors of the century, 23 of them were second-born people. Because the inventors aren't scared of making a mistake. Because you have to make lots of mistakes in order to invent something cool. And perfectionists tend to be scared of making mistakes, and they tend to be scared of taking on something they don't already know how to do well. And I worked as a therapist for so many years, and I had these little babies, and my firstborn baby, I thought, "Oh, he's going to suffer from this, and so I'm going to fix it." And so, from the time he was 2 days old, I'm like, "Oh, honey, just have fun and relax. Don't worry about anything." And he learned to roll over one day when he was about, I don't know, how old are they when they roll over? 5 months old or something. I left him in the living room by himself because there wasn't any furniture in it. I was in my minimalist period. And so he was on the floor, and there was this little night light on the wall that had fallen out of the socket. It was a little shell. And I went to make a sandwich, and I came back, and he had rolled, teaching himself how to rolled all the way over to where that light was out of place, and he was with this little baby hand who was trying to put it back in place. I kept trying, but Perfectionism can have a great positive side as well as being kind of destructive. I mean, it's good for job performance, and it's good for cleanliness, and yet it has a lot of downside, including stress and anxiety, and it can make you, as I said, scared to take risks. It can make you also kind of give up. So you can see some perfectionists who are very well put together, tidy people, who you could look at them and say, ooh, I bet he or she is a perfectionist. But you see other people who look like, an unmade bed of a human being. And what you don't know is that they are a perfectionist as well. They're just one that has said, what's the use? And procrastination is from perfectionism too, usually. I mean, you procrastinate because you want it to be so good, and yet you're afraid it won't be perfect. And so you just procrastinate because, and if you only had 2 days to work on it, then how could it be perfect? And you can say when you have the finished product, well, it would have been perfect if I'd had the time I need. I just didn't have it would have been perfect. Can make us kind of nuts. It can also make us very critical, not only of ourselves, but of other people. If we're perfectionists, it's hard sometimes to enjoy things, like going out to eat with a perfectionist, especially one who's been watching the Kitchen Nightmares show. They know how the restaurant should be run, and they know what the food should taste like, and they know how the service should be. And oddly enough, no one at the restaurant has asked them, how things should be done. And it's not as much fun to go out to lunch with me as it would have been otherwise. So in all aspects, perfectionism tends to lead to more fear and less love. And we as spiritual folk are aiming for the opposite. We're aiming for more love in every situation, more love. And you can't grit your teeth and will there to be more love in a situation. It doesn't work like that. It works more by wondering. So you just soften your mind and say, I wonder what this situation would be like with more love. I wonder. It's kind of the opposite of gritting your teeth. So Martha makes people feel clumsy and incompetent, but it's not her fault. It's because we're comparing our insides to her outside. So we don't know what's on her inside. We know what's on our own. And so, of course, we suffer by comparison. And it's not her fault either, because it's the devil's fault. Let me explain. Satan, or Satan in Hebrew, means the accuser. That is a well-known archetypal role in the mind of everyone. I'm not a person who believes in a personal devil, although sometimes I'm tempted to, but there is an element in the mind of a person that has an accusing voice that kind of pokes at you all the time and criticizes you all the time. And one word for that is the accuser, or Satan. And so that voice, which is always saying you're not completely adequate. And I think that probably God or your dad or your mom or your children are vaguely disappointed in you. And plus you can't really dance, and that last painting you did, people say they liked it, but it's kind of dumb. So does anybody know that voice? Okay, thank you. I'm not by myself here. And we get kind of depressed, and it enters the culture with sayings like, a thing worth doing is worth doing well. But I want to tell you something I learned from my mother and her violin playing, which is that a thing worth doing is worth doing badly. Because she loved playing the violin, and she didn't do it very well. And she would wake up every morning at 5 o'clock and pray for an hour. And then she would start practicing her violin from 6 to 7. Hanon exercises, which sound like this on the violin. And that was my alarm clock every morning of the world. But she had a great time, and she played as a volunteer in the Mainline Symphony Orchestra near where we lived, and she played way in the back, and just met lovely people and had a lovely time, and she did not have that all or nothing thinking that says either I play like Isaac Stern or I don't play at all. I mean, either I got an A++ or I failed. Either I knocked it out of the park or I bombed. She didn't have that. She just had, well, have fun. That was nice. So, I used to have this cartoon in my office with depicting Glinda, the Good Witch of the North. And Glinda is lying on her psychiatrist's couch and she's saying, "It got to be too much. You give someone a heart, you give someone else a brain, and people start calling at all hours." Finally, I realized I don't have to be everything to everyone. I can just be the good enough witch. What I want to say here this morning is that the devil is the spirit of fear that drives us into trying to control things that can't be controlled, into trying to impose order on something that doesn't really need order, into trying to make ourselves come up to a standard that is not necessary. You don't have to give 110% all the time. You just give 110% when it's time. But if you give 110% every minute of every day, please, you're going to be tired and annoying. And while I'm on it, do not live every day as if it were your last. That is exhausting as well. Just be a good enough person, a good enough crusader for social justice, a good enough spiritual person, a good enough parent or child, a good enough worker. Be more compassionate to yourself, more friendly. Just maybe every other day, don't try to improve yourself. I know that's heresy in front of a crowd of Unitarian Universalists. I mean, if none of us ever tried to improve ourselves, that would be bad. But if we never relaxed either, that would be bad. And so what we do is every other day, we alternate with the rest of the people in the world. We want the spirit of love to be the strongest in us, not the spirit of fear. We want to be people of compassion and openness. We want to look at one another with soft eyes. We want to look at ourselves with soft eyes. That's a phrase from the poet Rilke. Just to be kind. So when perfectionism is sharpening its claws in you, take some deep breath. Stop comparing your insides to other people's outsides. Remind yourself to be a good enough witch and wonder, what would this situation be like with more love?